Hello, and welcome back to the Let Me Add to That podcast. My name is Elizabeth Graswich, Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. We are the largest regional education agency in the United States. We serve 80 school districts and nearly 2 million children. We are excited to use this platform to take a deep dive into the conversations surrounding our students and schools in LA County. This month, we're delving into a very important topic. It is one that impacts every classroom, every student, every family: social media. We know that social media can have a positive impact on our students as it creates connections, builds creativity. We also know it can be a challenge. And today we're going to be talking about it with two experts. We have Dr. Anna Heinbach, who is with LACOE's Mental Health and Counseling Unit. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Hello.
So good to have you here. We are also joined by Melissa Gillespie, who is a LACOE 2025 School Counselor of the Year. She is with Las Virgenes Unified. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you both. This has been an important topic in my world and the world of many for a long time now. And, we know it does have such a huge impact. Now, Melissa, you have kind of an interesting background and experience with social media. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple years ago, I received the amazing opportunity to transition from a high school counselor to an elementary school counselor, which is something I never thought I would do ever. Didn't even intern in that capacity when I was doing my hours in grad school. And when I was getting ready to transition, I realized I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was very excited about the change, but really was starting from scratch in terms of what does this job look like and how do I do it? And I came across a few accounts on Instagram that had some really great ideas and some counselors that were doing some really great things. And I realized at that point that it would be inundating my personal account to be saving every single idea that I loved to my personal account. And I decided to create a counseling account. Literally created it as I was packing up my high school office to take it all the way to elementary school. And through that opportunity of creating this online presence as school counselor Melissa, I really was able to connect with counselors across the country. But not only that, I was able to really see what it looked like in different spaces, in different levels, working with students in different backgrounds, and really being able to bring really quality ideas to my school site and see what worked well for me.
I love that. I mean, I think we often, like I said, talk about the negative sides of social media, and we talk about connections and sense of belonging, but there's also connections and sense of learning and building community, which is really cool. I hadn't thought of it that way. And that's really today what we're talking about is, and from both of you, I mean, it's not just the negative sides of social media. We found that there are some positive things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think too, along with that, one of the really awesome things, even between myself and Anna, is that we have built a connection through social media that exists outside of our interpersonal connection. Granted, we see each other a few times a year in person, but I feel like I know the work that she's doing on a daily basis and how much she is putting forward into the universe, especially in the education field. And there's such a large community of counselors now that have social media accounts, and educators as well. But specifically as a school counselor, it's so empowering to see so many people in that space and sharing their ideas, not necessarily as a way of like, come buy my things, which is great too, that they now have that opportunity to do that, but really as a see what I'm doing and connect with me. Mm-hmm. And so going to the state conference, going to the national conference and walking into a space and seeing counselors from across the country and getting to walk right up to them and saying, oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you in person. But already having that connection built in is so powerful, I think.
No, I definitely agree. I know for myself, I'm I'm the voice behind our page, the mental health and school counseling page. So for me, it was really important when I came to LACOE to just amplify what we were doing in terms of professional development, the trainings that we offer, and being able to also highlight in those moments, working with our partners and the great work that they do, and how we want to engage our districts. We have 80 school districts and countless charters in LA County. To me, it's how do we get this out far and wide, right? And being able to connect with those districts. So we follow all the districts. We make sure to share, tag them. If any of us are at a training and we're taking pictures, we'll highlight that on our posts and tag the districts. I think more importantly, what we want to also share and stay kind of connected with is like what is happening out in the districts too. What are they seeing in terms of the need? And then making sure that we have conversations. It's so funny. I will get DMs and I'll have questions and I try to connect with, if it's not our unit, well, then I'm out trying to figure out what unit can provide that resource. I do want to add to what Melissa was saying. When I started our Instagram page, it blew me away. I was a school counselor for 10 years and then an assistant principal, and we used it to let parents know, right? They're already there. Parents and students are already on social media, so we just wanted to be a part of it. So we would share ideas, events, reminders. But for me at that time, I was only focusing on my little community, my little school community. So when we started our LACOE page, and just to come in contact with so many counselors, like Melissa stated, across the nation, right in our backyards, that had just these great pages where they're showing what they're doing, what's working for them in their setting, sharing ideas, curriculum that they've created on their own. And it really just gave me this sense of like, well, they're leaders in what they're doing, and we should share what's happening out into the greater community. In terms of just what I do too, I love sharing when we're out in the field. One of my greatest highlights, and I love posting, is that surprise visit to the school counselor and the school social worker of the year, and just putting that out there. And it is one of the most looked at posts. I feel like there's thousands of views on it, and our comments are just great, validating again the great work that our current school counselor and school social worker have been doing. So it's just great. It's great to know that we get to share this, and it's across the county and nation sometimes.
Yeah, that's awesome. We've been talking about, adults and how adults can connect, but in your work in working with students as counselors and just supporting them in general, you've also found that it can be a positive thing for students. Can you share a little bit about that?
What I specifically liked sharing when I was a counselor and a assistant principal was normalizing a lot of some of our services that we offered, and being able to help students, letting them know we have mental health services or we have a community liaison for basic needs. And I feel that once it hits social media in a way, if used well, it destigmatizes a lot of that, I don't want people to know, or, making sure that we post the hours our school social workers available really helps normalize that it is something and everybody gets to know about it and it's here for everyone. I think that also creating sort of these posts that highlight our kids in artistic ways, or if they're in theater or cheer or whatever, where they're just showing themselves involved in these school activities, it gives them the sense of hey, I made it to the page, right? And so this really adds to, I think, that school engagement, the school climate, and allows them to really want to participate in activities.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and I think too, if I can add to that, here we go. I think one of the things too with my role as a school counselor at the site, having worked at the high school with high school students and seeing social media there versus now at the elementary school, it is very different. One, because it's not legal for my students to have social media accounts currently at the elementary school because they're under 13. Granted, there are some students at my school that do have them. But what I find now most of the time at the elementary level specifically is that I will share a lot about awareness dates that are coming up. At my school site in particular, Children's Grief Awareness Day is a really big deal. We have a lot of loss at our school. We've had a lot of loss in our community over the last several years. And so using the social media platforms and really partnering with our Parent Family Association, that's been a really big thing, like because you can cross share posts and get messages out to families in a way that maybe you might not get to if you just shot it out in an email or sent something home, just because they can receive it in their own time, which is really great. And I think kind of like what she was saying is that it really is nice to bring awareness to the idea that no child is alone in what they're going through. And no parent is alone in raising their children. Because I think that as a parent myself, and my daughter is at my school this year, so I get to wear both hats every single day as a mom and as a counselor to 484 kids, is I think really getting to engage with families in a way that allow them to not feel isolated in what they're going through, especially post-COVID with the increase in mental health concerns and anxiety and depression and stress for everyone, really, to let them know that these sources are for them as well as their children. And I think that that's something that's really powerful too.
Yeah. You know, I feel like this is so positive. I almost hate to bring it up, but, you know, we also know that there's a negative side, right, to social media. And, you know, I think that one of the things that we can do is by sharing stories of things that we've seen or you've experienced related to students can also help show others at school sites, like what are the signs to look for? So, you know, kind of thinking through it in that frame, like, is there an example of something that you've maybe experienced with a student that has gone through something challenging with social media that others could learn from in terms of like, this is what you should be looking for?
Absolutely. I remember back when I was at the high school, it was a big Snapchat incident that went down in that this one student had something called a Snapchat streak where you like get validation from the app if you post X number of days in a row and you don't want that to stop. And I had a particular student who was grounded and got her phone taken away. And so she gave her password to somebody that she thought was a good friend so that they could continue that streak. But she wasn't witnessing what the friend was posting about her on her own personal page. And she was posting really inappropriate content about this person that she was supposedly friends with. And it was a really difficult situation to manage for both parties. Because one, the student whose account it was felt very violated in what was shared in a space that she thought was hers because she trusted somebody with her password. And then with the other student, just really figuring out the why behind the decisions that they were making and trying to figure out if that relationship could be repaired at all or if it needed to just dissolve completely. And that's just the social aspect of it, right? Because now you have an entire school of students who have witnessed certain photos, certain words, certain content, and that doesn't go away. And that doesn't change once the student gets her phone back. They don't automatically forget what has been put on the internet. And I think that that's the really hard part with social media, especially for some of our younger students, not necessarily elementary, but yes, elementary, the ones, because a lot of them have accounts, even if their grown-ups don't know, due to lack of restrictions on like an iPad or a phone or things along those lines. And I think that even at the high school level, there's not a lot of oversight that's happening with social media accounts by their grown-ups at home. And those grown-ups that are really involved that say, great, you can have one as long as I can follow you, don't recognize how many students also have secret burner accounts. Right. And so really just kind of recognizing that. I've seen a lot of really great ways to try and counteract it. But I think really overall just watching out for your students' affect. If you start noticing major changes in their behaviors and their how they present themselves in the classroom, how they start dressing, how they eat, all those things that often are tied really to mental health are often really big indicators, especially for teenagers, that something socially is going down. And oftentimes that's related to social media in some capacity.
Right. And I to add a little bit more to that, I know that we've come a long way now presently with how we're really trying to address these issues, like digital citizenship is talked about a little bit more. I think that is one of those things that we should talk about early in elementary school and what it means to really have this idea or understanding and awareness of the impact of posting about someone else, and it's not just how it's going to affect the person that's posting, but the person on the receiving end of that. I know that when I was a counselor, also in a high school setting, a lot of it was a thing. It was a trend. It was kind of this wave of taking pictures of people and posting them without their permission. And then it was, as soon as they would get to school, it would be like an altercation almost. So we really went through a lot of having to investigate because, as staff, as educators, we don't follow our students. We don't see what's happening. But then to be shared a screenshot or look what they're saying about me, and then having to really kind of backwards plan on, so where do we start to address this now that it's become rampant, for lack of a better word. We really needed to, even at that time, it was a little bit before COVID, but we didn't really even have, how do we discipline, in terms of like, it is bullying, it's cyberbullying, and having the language also. I think we've come a long way from that time to be able to now look at it and really hold where accountability needs to happen, but also educate our students on when we are sharing, we need to remember that these are easily screenshots that anybody could then reshare. And just that, I think, awareness for students and the consequences of them, they're hard conversations, but at this time, I think, if we start kind of like in that MTSS framework, right? How do we get this information to all our students? And then really work towards the understanding of what our tiered support could look like for digital citizenship is important in our school settings.
It's interesting. I'm going to use a term that I think is actually more associated with mental health, which is boundaries. And I really love this term with digital citizenship because digital citizenship, and I have been fortunate to be involved with it many, many years now, we haven't looked at it that way typically, right? But yet boundaries are something like that are so important for young people to learn, and it's something they can do for themselves and have ownership for themselves. And so, what kind of boundaries can students learn to set for themselves to help themselves really with social media?
Right. I personally, my son was a junior in high school when we were closed down for COVID, and there was something that he just really needed to connect with people. They're at home, and it was just he was ending his junior year. And that was something he was constantly trying to connect, right? And it was an urge. And I feel like it started really taking over a lot of the time, even though we're in our home and confined to our home, but it was taking so much time away from just other things. And I always felt like I had to say, like, well, what is the connection? Like, you want to talk to your friends? Like, is just knowing what other people are doing, that fear of missing out. I'm like, everybody's at home, right? So trying to
Everyone's missing out.
Everybody's missing out.
Missing out.
But I one of the things that we really started talking about was, well, what is connecting you? Are you bored? Is it stress? Do you feel lonely? Well, okay, I get that, but let's trade the phone out for something else. Mm-hmm. So he's a guitar player. He would pick up the guitar. So we would try to compartmentalize that time, right? And make sure that we were allotting for the connection time as well. But when we started talking about, well, what is that trigger? What is getting you to want to use the phone? That's when we really started talking about boundaries. Because if we didn't put these boundaries there, or help him recognize the boundaries needed to be put, he really probably would have been on his phone, 24/7. So a lot of it was, making sure that the phone notifications were off. We also made sure that, it wasn't the first thing he touched in the morning, and it wasn't the last thing he touched when it was bedtime, because it was almost like this schedule for him. And I think that it really needed to happen because nobody knew really how to handle social situations at the time. And I think that once we really started talking about it, he's 23 now, and he's still follows. It's like a habit, right? It's like a habit. Mm-hmm. And I think that because these were kind of the boundaries that we helped set up with him, because we did allow him to have the voice to say, well, this is the time that I prefer to be on there versus, it being something that we set for him. But it did allow us to really have check-ins too. And whether it was like during homework time, the phone was somewhere else, he never charged his phone in his room. Mm-hmm. We really added to, yes, this is a real unusual situation we're all going through, but if we don't really pay attention to what's going on, this could get out of our hands. And I think that now we're not in COVID, but these are still things that, allowing for those boundaries so that we don't let it get away from us, I think is really important. And I know if parents have asked me too, and these are kind of the examples that I share, because it's really easy for our young kids to get bored, right? Mm-hmm. Or feel lonely, or definitely that FOMO is real. But I think that once we start as parents connecting to and having conversations and seeking the why behind the need to have that connection to social media, we could offer ways to also remind our kiddos that there are other things that they can do with their time.
Yeah. I think there's several boundaries that grownups can put in place and alongside their student, but also as the parent. They can be the parent. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that we say a lot. I say a lot to the parents and guardians at my school, even at elementary school, of you are the grown-up. You don't have to ask permission to take the device away. Mm-hmm. Period. There's nothing where your child deserves to have that, right? If you really need to be able to have your child to have a phone, give them a flip phone. They don't need to have a phone that's connected to the internet, that's unlimited. They don't need that. Same thing with an iPad. They don't need it. They don't need an iPad. Yeah. Make them be bored. Make them go outside and play. Make them figure out what they can do in their time and learn something new. That said, with the actual social media specifically, I think some really great boundaries that can be put into place really are along those lines of, if a student is under 18 and they would like a social media account, they need to allow their grown-up to have access to it, I think. As a parent, as a counselor, I think, because to have a social media account as a minor, I think, is a big trust exercise. We want to trust our children to make the right choice. And also, we want them to trust us to support them in that. So I think making sure that you have access to that. I think for the students themselves, something that's really helpful that I actually do is on your phone, you can set up time restrictions for certain apps. And so you can do it for specific ones, or you can do it for like a group of them. So I know for myself, I have an hour max on any social media platform each day, and then it shuts off on my phone and automatically blocks me out of it. And I think that sometimes I do get to the point where it's like, you have a 5-minute warning on you've been spending way too much time on this today. And it's a really good reminder of that's a whole hour that I could have been spent doing something else. Right. And I think also there's some really amazing digital programs now as the adult to help our younger children as they are learning to set these boundaries in place for themselves, where you can set the time restrictions from a separate device where it will literally automatically shut off on them. And I actually have a 5th grade student. She does not have social media. Her grown-ups have actually told her they will buy her a car when she turns 18 if she does not have a social media account before she turns 18.
Wow.
And I said, take the deal, my friend. But she bought her own phone. So the phone device is hers, but the plan is paid for by her parents, and they have the ability to shut off everything, even the calendar and the weather app on her phone.
Wow.
So if she is making choices that are not appropriate, they will shut everything down, and the only thing accessible to her at that point is to make phone calls. And so in that case, it's not necessarily the device that they can take away because it is hers, but they, as the parents, can still oversee what she has access to.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. Building that trust with your student is really, really important. And explaining the why behind why the boundaries are important. It's not to keep people out. It's to let other people know how they are allowed to interact with you. And I think that that's okay to not be accessible. Another great one that Anna mentioned was really, like, I don't think that any student should have their phone in their bedroom.
Right.
I don't think adults should have their phones in their bedroom. Is mine right next to my bed? Yes, it is. But a really great step even for a younger kid. But I need it for an alarm. But I need it for this. Get an analog alarm. You could buy one at the dollar store. You can go to get a fancy one at Target or TJ Maxx. And I think there's lots of ways around it that are really helpful.
I agree. Yeah. I think one of the funniest things, my niece, she was probably 10 and she created an account. She knew how to do it. And, but, kids don't also know that it's attached to the phone number. Right. And then when your suggested friends are on, pop up, she was one of my suggested friends, and I screenshot it. I sent it to my sister. I'm like, did we know this is happening? And it just became a thing. But conversations hadn't happened yet at that time. Right. So I think it is a little wild to me that at 10, that was a conversation that we had to have. But it also meant that we just are also needing to be aware of the changes, right, that are happening every day around us. And so it would just kind of, to me, also my lived experience as a school counselor and assistant principal and the things that I've seen students bring to me and just really have these panic attacks over, it allowed me to also have a conversation with her about these are the things that I see. Thea has to talk to kids about what to post, what they shouldn't post. So having this conversation with you means that I want you to be safe. And I think that in those spaces, not only is it like having to remind the adults around us that these are real concerns, and we have a lot of kids that suffer, whether it's in elementary, middle, or high school, when they don't know. And they need to also feel safe enough to say, I made a mistake and this is what happened. Can you help me? Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that's where we're also at. And I know that, my niece is now 14 and she and my sister have a great relationship, but that's also one of those things that I feel like we always have to check in. Yeah. And even if it's seeing a kiddo that is probably fine academically, but their behavior patterns have changed, they might be staring off in the distance in the classroom, which is not their baseline. Maybe that's when we just need to ask, And sometimes we often don't think as social media as we treat it as a separate issue, and it really needs to be part of the whole wellness of our student.
This is such great insight for people. So I'm so pleased you're here. One of the things that I'm guessing that school counselors deal with is, students who do have addictions or related to social media and maybe have unhealthy habits. Mm-hmm. Are there tips for them in terms of how they can maybe help a student by turning that kind of addiction into more of a positive thing mm-hmm. rather than a negative through some sort of a creative outlet?
One of the things I was going to say just really fast, kind of related to that is that I know there's a lot of research out right now that has been coming out really over the last 10, 15 years about the impact of social media, even just the and the hit of dopamine that you get mm-hmm. when that happens. I think kind of really making sure that you are engaging in a way that takes that piece down just a little bit. I know the creative piece is really important. And so sometimes what I will do for some of my students in the elementary setting is I'll turn it into a drawing contest where they have to use art or they can use Canva or some type of other digital medium. So they're using that to create content, and then that's something that gets shared out with our school community through email, through my social media, through our parent family association social media. And so it's requiring them to use some of the same parts of their brains, but really for that. Mm-hmm. And there's also some really fun ways as school counselors to incorporate the ideas of social media into some of your lessons. Prior to becoming a school counselor, I worked in the nonprofit sector running grief camps for kids. Mm-hmm. And when I think about that and some of the hard topics now that we deal with as school counselors, sometimes kids have a really hard time putting it into words. Mm-hmm. And utilizing art and the idea of social media in a way. Granted, back then it was called Twitter. But we actually would have little birds cut out, and we would say, yes. Give us hashtags for mm-hmm. how you feel. Mm. Yeah. And that really allowed them to share their feelings in 140 characters or less mm-hmm. Without feeling like they had to give a full monologue about their experiences, which was really special. Sometimes what I do at the elementary school now is I have them create goals, but using an Instagram square mm-hmm. Where they have to draw a picture of what they'll look like by the end of the year or in 5 mm-hmm. years. Mm-hmm. And then they have to write a caption for it. Nice. So it's kind of a fun way to incorporate it without it being something that they actually mm-hmm. have.
Right, sure.
But I think too, just really making sure that they have those tools available to them. And I know we just talked about boundaries, but another idea just came to me. I know some friends and some parents that do this with their students where you can't have the app on your phone. So if you really want to see it, you have to manually log in every time through the internet.
Just more of a hassle.
Yeah, which is more of a hassle, which typically will limit the amount of time that you're actually doing it. So that just came to me right now. Let me share that one.
Great tip.
Yeah, I think also who you follow, right? Mm-hmm. Who are you following? Why are you following them? And what is it about needing to see what's on their page that mm-hmm. is kind of driving that need to get back on social media? if you saw my Instagram, it's like I'm following all these cooks, right? So like, what can I make? But I think that one of the things that I've realized is that is sort of what drives a lot of anybody but students to really get back on social media. I think, again, boundaries are really important. Identifying the trigger, like what is not happening that is now you're going back. And how can you fill up your time otherwise? What are some of the other things that our kiddos could be doing? I think then replacing it with something else, right? Like I mentioned, my son would play guitar. I think one of the creative things that I love that he does now is he loves photography. And so he goes out and he takes pictures, and now he has like his page is more of a photography page. But I love that, we get to go out, or that he gets to go out. And then again, this also started during COVID because we had to find something to replace, this need to scroll. But with students, I think that there is an addiction. The like is very true, that hit a dopamine. Even I that run our page for LACOE, like I'm like, oh, look how many followers we have now.
I don't know what you're talking about. Never.
Right? Never.
Yeah.
But I think that it's fun for me because it gives me a sense of like there's a need. And so they're coming to our page, and hopefully we're meeting that need for them.
Yeah.
Right. So there is that flip side of it. But it is something that every now and then, if I get tagged by one of our other pages, like I feel the responsibility of like resharing and doing that. But even I have needed to set boundaries on that. If we have, our team is great. If they would like me to post something, they send me a calendar invite. And on the calendar invite, they'll add what they want in the caption, in the body. They'll send me the pictures. So all I'm doing is copy pasting and inserting into the page. And that's something that we really, talked as a team and came up with this plan because I am the one posting. And it gives me at least that moment of this is the only time I'm going to be posting today. And so it's really nice that we've set that boundary and used the calendar as a form of making sure that I know when to post and what to post.
That is a great trick for our team.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, great idea. Have you either of you seen like great examples of schools implementing digital well-being programs? Are there suggestions that you would have? And I love that term, digital well-being. I think it's so much stronger than digital citizenship, really, because it's really about a student's well-being right now.
I think when we talk, I do a lot of trainings out in the field about multi-tier systems of support. And I think that the schools that have implemented and made sure that it's a tier one sort of expectation for all their students to have this information, this universal support, because it sets the tone. And if we're going to in crisis mode, then we're reverting back to, well, this is why we're doing this, and this is why we're making sure students have classroom lessons, right? When we're thinking about school counselors going into the classroom and providing lessons on what it looks like to be a positive digital citizen, I think that this is where we really set the tone for the expectation, not just in school, but when we then share this information with our parents. It's really a two-way communication now between, if this is what it looks like at school, like let's make sure that these are also what we're sharing at home. I think, and then making sure that if there are these student groups that still need this extra support in it, then what are we doing for small group instruction or small groups to be able to then support, even if it's restorative practices, like, or a peer-to-peer mediation between, like, hey, this is a problem, and now we need to peer mediate. So we do have, students that are maybe running digital citizenship campaigns or initiatives at their school sites, and now they can really speak to it to their peers. And then making sure that we always have resources for even that crisis mode, right? And when we're scaffolding our resources in that way and providing in a universal sense an expectation, not just a statement or sign this document and now you're a digital citizen. No, we need to show them what it looks like. We need to make sure that they visually understand what is okay and not okay. And I think that in spaces where I've been able to speak to, counselors or go to districts where I know this is a instrument that they're using to guide this understanding for our students, it is a school climate and culture tool that we could use.
I think one of the things that has been really great for our district this year is that we actually implemented a no phone policy in our district this year. So this is the first year that kind of kicked off. And it's always kind of been that way for elementary and middle school, quote unquote. But there was always students who had their smartphones or their smartwatches and they were like, I'm going to the bathroom. And then you would see them putting their watch up to their mouth and like the next thing you know, their grown-up was at the front office like, I'm here to pick them up today. And so this year our district implemented the no cell phone policy, which also includes no smart watches, which has been really great for our elementary students, whether they believe that or not, whether their grown-ups believe that or not. It can be off and away in their backpack, but they don't need it. They need to be able to connect to their peers. And I think that part of digital well-being is looking at the impact of virtual versus in-person connection. And something that we've really noticed over the last several years is as technology has become more utilized in the school system and at home, there is a lot less ability for social peer interactions. Conversations. What does a conversation look like? How do you look at somebody and actually say, hello, how are you? It's so nice to see you. One of our kindergarten teachers actually, like from day one, every single year, will say, how do we greet a guest? And they all have to turn and look at you and say, hello, welcome to our room. And she'll always say, and how do we respectfully say thank you? And they all have to, she's like, we always turn and we look them in the eye and we say, thank you so much. And so I think it really ties in together. But I think one of the really big pieces for the digital wellness, digital well-being really comes down to parent-guardian education. Because granted, my daughter is 4, so it's a little, hopefully, very far off. But just in regards to even just technology as a whole and respecting that and what that does, because our kids' brains are developing until they're 25. And if a kid is staring at a screen for multiple hours a day, what does that impact look like on their brain development and their ability to grow and interact? And so really talking about what kids are using and why, putting the authority into the parents' voices. And I'm trying to think of a word to say it and I don't remember what it is, but even just like giving the parents permission to say no. Even though sometimes as a parent, again, as of a 4-year-old, where sometimes it might just be easier to be like, fine, just watch a movie. That gives me 5 minutes to just go do that thing that I need to do. And I get that. And I get both sides. And I think that the digital well-being piece is really important across all age levels, all the way down to TK at our school. It's really, really important to talk about.
I think one of the things that we talk a lot about, even when I go out to trainings, is self-regulation, right? And I think that it's become a tool for self-regulating, right? Like, okay, just take it, use it, and you'll be fine. But I think one of the things that we have to ask ourselves too is really how, if the phone, social media wasn't there, what would we be doing to support our students to self-regulate? So that goes back to even like how school counselors provide these classroom lessons and activities. Mindfulness is so big. All these things where, we are the medicine, I guess, for lack of a better, we're the ones that are creating that self-regulation for ourselves. And there's so much of that has come out in the last several years. COVID was example of how, making sure we're teaching mindfulness, breathing, and all these things. But really identifying too, though, that if we keep searching for self-regulation in social media, there's a gap. We're missing something. And so we really having conversations with our students and our kids about really what is making them feel like they can get that or regulate by scrolling or finding the answers on social media. I think that's still a conversation that we still have to have, but I see it a lot promoted in the pages that we follow, school counselors sharing their experiences, and I see a lot more and more where there is just this promotion of mindfulness from our school counselors. Yoga is really big. And I think that is also, when I scroll the counselor pages, that's kind of where I get my ideas too. For me, it's great when I get to go out to sites and am in a school setting because I'm not in that space anymore. But I also would love to see kiddos talk about where we can let our students speak about what they're struggling with to normalize a lot of and support them in that way.
As we kind of wrap this up, I have one final question for you, which is, if there's one piece of advice that you could give to educators around how to support students with social media, what would that advice be?
Go first.
Oh, okay. I think making sure that kind of what I stated before, that we don't look at social media and the issues that come up with social media as isolated to or singular. It is part of the well-being of our students. It is now part of their everyday life. So treating it in that way. And also being able to let our kiddos know that we are here to help them and support them, and normalizing that and not bringing the shame piece to it, because a lot of times when we can talk to them about this was something that you want to change or you're having regrets over posting certain things, when we can get past the shame and really speak to what support they need, I think that's what the best thing that we could do for them.
I would say the piece of advice I would give to educators regarding social media and working with our students is really to not see social media as the bad guy. Because it's very easy, especially in the mental health field, to just want to blame that for why something might be happening, when really what it might be for a student is a Band-Aid over what they're experiencing. Right. And I think that really making sure that we are not necessarily telling students that it's bad, you can't have it, don't be on it, but teaching alongside them the places that they can find on social media that will be of value, and the ways to interact in a safe and kind way, because I think a lot of times we really focus on the once it's out there you can never bring it back, and don't do it, it's rotting your brain, which could very well also be happening. We don't have that research yet, but I think really focusing on, okay, how can you use this for good?
Right.
I think is something that is really important to look for, and really making sure that we help them along the ways without the judgment behind it, because we don't always know a child's full story. And so making sure that we create that safe space with them so that they can open up and have that conversation with us is really important.
Well, I just want to thank you both. What a wonderfully rich conversation. Just tons of tips on how to positively help navigate such a challenging situation of social media. So thank you to Anna and Melissa. And I just want to note, too, that this is first airing during School Counseling Week, which is February 2nd through 6th. So please, please, please thank your school counselor. They do such wonderful work and are such huge supports of our youth. If you want to learn more about LACOE's school counseling and mental health services, please visit LACOE, www.lacoe.edu, and you'll find a ton of resources.
Please follow the Los Angeles County Office of Education on Instagram and YouTube at Los Angeles COE. That's Los Angeles COE. Or you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn at Los Angeles County Office of Education.